I'm joined today by Rich Smith with Atlas MedStaff. Rich is a friend and colleague in the travel nursing industry. Rich, welcome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we go back a long ways.
It's been a number of years.
Yeah.
And I want to go ahead and put it out there. I want to thank Rich. This is actually the second time I've asked him to join me, which kind of is a good segue into some of the reason we're meeting today. Technology that's really changed everything since COVID kind of ripped through the country. I forgot to record our last session. And so Rich was
You didn't have to say that. It's okay. We would just look like that much smarter this time around. They'd be like,
Yeah.
wow, that's super polished and good job.
But you know me, that's not who I am. You know, I'm not very polished. I think that you kind of fit that too. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean that in a good way.
absolutely. 100%. I take pride in that, actually.
So it's been a year, about exactly a year since our country basically shut down, right? Came to a screeching halt because of COVID. More than 2.5 million people have died worldwide. More than 525,000 in the US have died. Lots of things have been canceled. Graduations, vacation plans, you name it, has been canceled. So I wanted to bring you here today to really find out what your experience has been through all of this.
You know, when the world kind of shut down last year, it caused me to really stop and take a look at not only what I did every day, but then like how I organized myself and how I went about my day-to-day activities. And a lot of self-reflection, a lot of introspection, and you wouldn't think that. You would think, oh, it got way crazier, and with not being in the office and whatever. And there was a certain amount of that, but at the same time, it really gave me a chance to take a look inward.
That's fantastic. I think I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people probably did have the time to kind of reflect. I think it certainly, if anything, it really, I mean, it really shed light on your own mortality, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And how you interact with family members and just friends, and the fact that we were kind of forced into a situation where we couldn't be in the same room together, right? I mean, we were quarantining.
Yeah, that maybe was the hardest part. I like being around people so much, and I like the noise of the office and and all that. And that was one of the hardest parts, was not having that all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about some of the things that maybe stood out to you that you were thankful to have in place as an agency prior to COVID.
So when we started 9 years ago, Omaha, I don't have to tell you this, you know this already. Omaha is a very competitive market for recruiters. And so when we started Atlas 9 years ago, trying to convince recruiters to leave their very good job and come to a startup was almost impossible. Like that is very, very difficult to do. And so we adopted a remote model early on. And we learned from that over the years. And we had gotten to the point, especially with our IT team, when the world shut down a year ago, it was just as easy as our recruiters and everyone actually in the office just picking up their laptop and going home, because we had a very structured system in place. When someone new started, they got the same laptop and the same docking station and the same cords. Like when they order them, when our IT department orders them, it's a very structured ordering process. And so everyone gets the exact same thing. Not only is it cost effective, but it makes it very easy for, in a situation like this, for people just to go home and work from home.
Yeah, and that's huge. I think that's probably, one of the reasons there was such a disparity. I think early on, the first maybe 3-4 months after COVID kind of first reared its ugly head, but some agencies were really prepared, right? They were able to quickly pivot to that remote model. Some of them were already running a remote model, and those agencies were able to put themselves in a position to help much more quickly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we were 25% remote already. And then the rest of them had the ability to work from anywhere at any time anyway. So it was, obviously there was logistics involved, and picking up and going home, but to a certain extent, it really was just kind of you're here one day and then you're here the next day.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like overnight, right? Everything just kind of like shut down. And
Mhm.
I mean, it was a weird, it still is. It's just a weird experience to go out in public and see everyone still with masks, obviously for good reason, and to wear a mask. It's just a bizarre that our kids are going to experience something that we in our lifetime, right? Um,
This is going to affect us for years to come. There's no doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess in hindsight, like, were there any things that you wish you had in place prior to COVID?
Yes, and I think the biggest thing for me is, like, because I said it, I like people and noise and action. And I mean, you and I we've been together on sales teams before, and on the same team and that type of thing. When you go home and the office is dark, it's a completely different environment. And how do you connect like you would connect, at the office every day? And I think we didn't necessarily, no one, I don't think, had a plan for how do you maintain that. You lose a little bit of your culture when you can't do that anymore. And you do the best with what you got with this kind of thing. Like, you and I haven't seen each
Right.
other for a year. We still keep in touch this way. But
Yep.
it's you lose just a little bit of it. And I think that's one of the things that maybe we could have planned ahead. No one has that, no one has the magic 8 ball to tell
Yeah.
us, or
Yeah.
crystal ball to tell us what's happening, but are going to happen. But maybe doing a better job of connecting remotely, up to that point to kind of help us through this past year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think everyone's still trying to figure that out. I don't
Well,
know. If you figure it out, let me know.
I think we'd be doing something else if we could figure that out, quite honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to a friend over at Talamed yesterday. He was saying the same thing. The things that he misses the most are kind of the banter that goes, outside of the cubes, kind of in the break room
Mhm.
conversations, water cooler talk,
Yeah.
tossing the football around in the office, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a different environment altogether. Good or bad, it's just that's how it is now. And I hope some point we get back to that.
Absolutely. I think there are a lot of people that are ready to be back to that.
Yeah.
So what would you say is something maybe, and it's hard to even say this, but something maybe positive that's come out of this?
Well, I mein, I think that the one positive for me, at least, was not only getting to do that, having the time and to to reflect on myself, but one of my New Year's resolutions last year, so going into 2020, was get better with my calendar, because my calendar is a mess, and if it was even right in the first place. And so it was one of those things that really made me focus on each day. I'm a salesperson at heart. And trying to organize my day was very, very difficult. And it was fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. Oh, okay, what meeting we got next? All right, we'll go do that right now. And it's not a scheduled calendar event. And so maybe I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. And so one of the positives that came out of that really was just becoming better and better with my calendar and making sure that I was more prepared for each day. Now, that takes some time and preparation for the day, but in the end, I'm more efficient, I get more done, and I feel better about the time that I've spent.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I think organization's always been a weakness for me. I've always been very open about that. I think you and I share that in common. I know that we're not alone from some of the conversations I've had with some other folks,
Yeah.
owners, execs, who actually have a personal secretary because they can't stay organized. I know that's not you and I. We're not
Right.
we're not those types of people that are going
No.
to have a personal secretary running things, but uh, I can understand the need sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, how has all of this impacted healthcare professionals from conversations that you've had? What are you hearing, and how has that changed, maybe even over time?
I don't know if it's necessarily changed as much. It's gotten a little more, it's gotten a little worse. But I think one of the biggest things that we're going to have to deal with here for the next however many years is burnout has increased. dramatically. And because this isn't the same. This job isn't the same as it was 2 years ago, 4 years ago, or whatever. There are healthcare professionals that are put in scenarios that they're either not familiar with, equipped to handle, and it's not because they can't, it's just they haven't had that experience. And they go into a situation and they're just pointed in one direction or another, and it doesn't necessarily fit, and it's harder for them than it's ever been before. And so, not that it was easy before, it is exponentially harder now. So dealing with that burnout is going to be a real thing. It's a real thing right now, and it's going to be a real thing down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there have been a number of studies recently. I think the most recent large study was done in December, but showed that I think 90% of nurses are suffering from burnout.
Yeah.
There's this thing called compassion fatigue, and it's really impacting that whole profession. And you and I both see, we see the posts on social media and all the stuff that, I mean, it's very noisy.
Yeah.
And I think that what this whole situation has I think allowed me to do is to really just fully appreciate the role that nurses, not that I've never understood it, but the role that they play in day-to-day.
Right.
Our healthcare system relies heavily on nurses.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. And they're always the one that end up being counted on, right? In the end, it's always them. And I think you're right. Just after a while, that's got to wear you out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and these folks have families, and they have, friends that they want to connect with, and all of those things are even more shut off to them, right? Because of their high potential for exposure.
Yeah. Oh, there's no support system, right? That support system is gone. And again, we can come back to this type of conversation or whatever, or a FaceTime conversation or something. That's not the same. It's just not the same.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's hope things come back to normal here soon. I guess the last thing I want to ask you is kind of looking into your crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that our industry will change as a result of this past year and with COVID?
I think consolidation will only continue to happen, especially from a vendor manager or from an MSP standpoint. It was happening before, where the larger ones with the most jobs were relying more on their 5 to 10 best rather than their 20 to 50 or whatever. It's I've got that contract now with whichever one, I can staff through them. Well, that all kind of went away. The smaller agencies are going to struggle for sure, because they don't fit into that 5 to 10, that sort of group. I think we will continue to see consolidation within the industry from an agency standpoint. I think we've seen that a lot lately. I think you'll continue to see that. It as much as it's good now, it wasn't last year. It was very difficult. And as this year continues to evolve and change, I think we'll see only more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it does pull to mind, I guess, or cause to come to mind the 2008, 2009, financial crisis and how it impacted our industry. What are your thoughts on how that is kind of similar to the situation that we may be experiencing in the future?
Without a doubt. I think that you saw the regular ebb and flow of how our industry, how nurses or healthcare professionals would take contracts and then be off. Because of all the cancellations last summer, we saw that everything shift, and it messed with the regular sort of cycle that we had in the industry. We saw it in 08, 09. We've seen it now too. I think we're going to see that for a number of years to come. It took us a while to get back to the regular cycle. I think we've got a couple of years now where the cycle is going to be disrupted again, and we're only going to feel the effects of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, I agree 100%. I think the next 6-9 months are going to be interesting, just to see how things do shift. And I think a lot of it has to do with the unknown, which we don't know what's going to happen with the virus. I mean,
well, and quite honestly, outside of the virus, like, all of us didn't magically get healthier. If anything, maybe we got a little sicker, right? I mean, if it's not myself or you, but let's say, for example, you had to, a person out there had to have some sort of surgery done last summer and they put it off. Well, they're that much further down the road with whatever illness that is. You're going to see maybe that hospital stay longer, maybe just maybe a little bit longer than it would have been before. You might see like LTAC stays go up. There's any number of things that might happen because of that, because people didn't, they left the system for a while and they didn't get the help or the care that they needed. And so that will affect that cycle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along with that will come the potential for, as you kind of mentioned, some of those smaller agencies to see a more challenging market, right?
Yeah.
And that is what we saw in 08 and 09. We saw some of those smaller agencies just couldn't survive, you know,
Right.
and hopefully that's not the case. But I mean, that's
right. Exactly. I think, well, no, I never fault anyone for going to try it on their own. It is going to be more difficult now than it ever has before. You're starting to even see it affect some like workers' comp rates and things like that. There's been a change in the industry from an agency side like we've never seen before, and the effects of it we're only going to see more and more of it down the road as we get into 2021 and next year when renewals come up and that type of thing. We will see more and more change, maybe not always for the better, but change for sure.
absolutely. Well, as always, my friend, it's been great having you. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll have to do this again sometime soon, not wait so long.
I love doing them. So anytime you want, just hit me up here and we'll do it again.
Sounds great, man. I will do
All
that.
right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
buddy.
brother.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.